Well, greetings, Imagination Connoisseurs. It is once again I, the sanctimoniously notorious RMB, here on a Friday, the last Friday of June. We are at the halfway point of the year, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, we've got Democratic national debates happening. We've got, 2019 is half out the door. It's unbelievable how quickly things change in our world today, but rather exciting, I must say. Welcome to all of you Imagination Connoisseurs to the Post-Geek Singularity community. It's great to have you. As you can see, Tallulah and Gilbert are probably going around in the background, and so is Elizabeth. Doing some renovation around here, doing some cleaning up, a lot of work to do, a lot of things happening. We had a lot of work done on Tango Shalom this week, a lot of ADR, which is automatic dialogue replacement, which is bringing us ever closer to finishing this bad boy. I'm hoping that it will be done probably at the end of July. Of course, we did get in the Skyfighter, the other film that I'm working on, did get in. The Skyfighter is a crowd-funded sci-fi short written and directed by Lucas Kendall. We shot it at the end of last August, and then we edited in September and October, and then turned over our cut to Tobias Richter from the Lightworks, who you might know from Axanar, Prelude to Axanar, and the Axanar Project, which you can see the work that we did together on the Burnettwork.net website under the Deconstructing Axanar section. And which is great work. And he worked for me on both Tango Shalom. He did a digital matte painting for Tango Shalom and Moses getting struck by lightning. So it's all very exciting. But so Skyfighter will be having its world premiere at the Los Angeles Shorts International Film Festival on July 24th. So that's pretty exciting. It's always exciting when work that you've done gets into a film festival and can get seen in a public venue. It kicks off with a program of sci-fi shorts on the 24th at the Lemley's NoHo, North Hollywood, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon with, I think it's like a 2-hour program of sci-fi shorts. I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. So that's pretty cool. It's always good to have work going, a lot of work happening, all kinds of work. Which brings me to this chat, everyone. But first of all, remember that all Robservations are brought to you by Lucky Tiger Men's Lucky Tiger Men's grooming products for those men who want to look good and feel great. And if you go to the Lucky Tiger website, getluckytiger.com, and you buy any of their stuff, you can get 20% off if you punch in PGS for Post-Geek Singularity when you check out. And also, today is the last day of their summer sweepstakes. Their summer sweepstakes at clubluckytiger.com has been extended till today. And you can get some free swag and other stuff. It's cool. So go to clubluckytiger.com, and you don't have to be a guy. You can be a girl too, or, however you identify. You can go there and perhaps win free grooming products. And I cannot recommend their grooming products highly enough because they're great. I love them. Anyway, so that's great. And I really appreciate. Oh, I should shout out. I did finally drop. I decided to start my own little Living the Lucky Tiger life, just for fun, sort of a Burnettwork and a Robservations adjunct. And I did drop my interview with Lucky Tiger President Alan Murphy. You can go find that on the on my web, on the Burnettwork YouTube page. You can find that interview I did. I also tweeted it out. And you can find that because I think it's kind of fun. And Alan Murphy was fun to talk to. And what I want to do is I want to get him to come on more because he's an avid traveler. And I'd like to sort of grill him about where he likes to travel, what insights he can give us. And I'll be doing some more. I've got already my next Living the Lucky Tiger life podcast or video cast with James Hills from another website, which I'm going to keep under wraps for the time being till I introduce it next week. But I did a quick chat with him. He was actually on a new cruise ship up in Vancouver, Canada, where Willow Yang lives. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I was chatting live via Skype with a new cruise ship that had put to sea, and they were trying to generate interest. So they had lots of bloggers and reporters, and I actually interviewed James from up there. And it's a little loud. The sound is a little lacking, but you can still hear him. But it's a lot of fun, and you get to see this new cruise ship. And heck, it made me want to go on it. And they're not even sponsoring me. So it's going to be another Living the Lucky Tiger life podcast or video vlog, whatever you call it. It's going to drop next week. It's kind of fun. I mean, I kind of like doing these extra things where it's not just talking. I can actually do a little bit of editing, have a little package, little video packages. But there's some cool footage that I did get from the cruise line. So HD images of that ship. I mean, this ship has like a go-kart track on it. It's crazy. Anyway, for today's topic off the top, what I want to talk about off the top, I got a very, very nice letter that I'd like to read. And it's funny when you work in the film business, and I'm sort of a jack of all trades. You do work, and a lot of people think that if you've made a movie or something that you must watch it. I never do, because you've watched it so much, and then when you finish it, you send it out into the world, and unless somebody wants to see it and you watch it with them or something, you don't really watch the work that you've done. You kind of set it free. You don't go hunt it down and capture it again. You set it free into the world. And it's funny because you never know where or when it comes back to you. Well, as many people know, from 1999 to 2015, I created special features for first DVDs and then Blu-rays. And it was a really great, at least up until about 2008, incredibly lucrative way to make money. And it was a lot of fun for me because you get to make documentary films. But the best part about it was I was traveling literally around the world. I got to live in foreign countries on the studio's dime. I was paid a lot of money, good money. And I was basically on movie sets with a camera in my hand with carte blanche to go up to anyone and talk to them about their jobs. And it was the best learning experience I can possibly imagine. And I think I was able to do a lot of great work with a lot of great dedicated team members, especially my friend Dave Parker, who did a lot of editorial and shooting and other things for me. And we traveled around, and it was a lot of fun. And, when you set these things free, you don't know what effect they're going to have on people. I know that not everybody watches special features, and especially now with physical media going away, a lot of the work that I've done will fall into obscurity unless somebody decides to put it online or things like that. And for instance, I did a lot of work for Disney. I did a piece called Disney Through the Decades that was on Snow White. I directed a feature-length documentary about the making of Tron that I was very excited about. I did that back in 2002 for that film's 20th anniversary disc. They repurposed it and did put it on the Tron Blu-ray, which came out when Tron Legacy was released. So that was exciting to see that come back. Very proud of that documentary. It's a little dry, to be honest, because there's not a lot of behind the scenes footage of Tron being made, but I really liked doing it. One of my favorite things I ever did was I went to Australia. I was there during the entire production of Superman Returns, and I made a 3-hour documentary along with other people, other teammates help. I made a 3-hour documentary that I directed and edited a lot of, along with Dave Parker, who edited a lot of it, and Adam Robitel, who's gone on to direct things like Escape Room and Insidious 4, The Lost Key, or The Forgotten Key, The Lost Key. We were all down there together, and it was amazing watching a $200 million movie like Superman Returns get made. And I wanted to sort of present a you are there experience of what it was like. I was really, truly a fly on the wall. It wasn't a talking heads documentary where people were sitting down talking. It was all stuff that was going on while I was there. You're looking through my camera. You're looking through Adam Robitel's camera. And we really captured what was going on with the production of that film. And the final documentary, which is on the Blu-ray of Superman Returns, whether you like the film or not, I'm really proud of that documentary. I think the film's really grown on me as the years have gone by. I really have a great attachment to it. But that being said, I got this very nice letter that I wanted to share from you today. It's from JCT. Dear RMB, I wanted to write as a sincere thank you for your part in my filmmaking journey. The amazing behind-the-scenes documentary work you have completed over the years has been a huge part of my filmmaking education and inspiration. When you often hear about incoming or upcoming filmmakers saying behind-the-scenes featurettes are as good as any film school, I immediately think of you, and in particular, the documentary that I found most inspirational, Requiem for Krypton, The Making of Superman Returns. While Superman Returns has found very valid criticism as the years have passed on, the importance of that documentary you created only gets clearer for me. At 18 years old in 2006, when the theatrical and DVD release came out, I was incredibly impressionable. And your documentary, together with the discovery that you and the production team filmed in not only my own country of Australia, but near Tamworth, within 2 hours driving of my little country hometown, I was, to say, the absolute least motivated by Hollywood being so close to home. Reflecting on this recently got me thinking about the importance of behind-the-scenes video content as an educational tool, and how the people behind the BTS cameras and in the edit bays putting them together don't get nearly enough credit. I genuinely consider you to be a part of my film education, and feel there should be a greater respect for those like you who pave the way to inspire the next wave of filmmakers as much, if not more than, the very films whose production you are following. Requiem for Krypton ended up following me to the point where, years later, I went to that very same location the Kent farm was filmed at and utilized the old barn set in a short film I directed that went on to win the best short film at the Sitges Film Festival and went a long way towards getting my career moving. As of late last year, I became represented by one of the big three talent agencies and have just gotten a deal for a feature film with the Russo brothers company Agbo or AGBO Studios. My career is just starting to open exciting doors, and it is my nostalgic and thankful nature to reflect on those who have helped inspire and support me in this journey. I want to thank you for your part in this, Rob, and tell you that you will always have a fan in me. Sincerely, JCT. Well, JCT, first of all, it's letters like this that I can't tell you how much it means to me, because I was very lucky over the course of my life, even when I was young, that I was able to meet a number of people. I had no connection really to the entertainment business at all. But because I went to conventions and film festivals and things like that when I was young, I was always meeting people that were very generous to me and helped me out whenever I seemed to need it, or they were there to offer sage-like wisdom or advice. And it was invaluable when you have people that you look up to or admire. And it's strange for me to think that you would look up or admire me or something that I've done and find it valuable, because when you're making something, when I'm making something, at least, what I'm trying to do is make the thing I try and make whatever I'm working on the best it can be. Not because I want accolades, but for its own sake, because I want to be the audience member that looks back at something I've worked on and said, man, isn't that cool? Like, didn't we do something cool? And, when you send it out into the world, I've tried to explain to people that I don't think they really understand, because everybody sees the benefits of what working in movies brings you. Like, if you have great commercial success, and I mean, if you want to go meet actresses, if that's your thing, I guess you could go do that. But for me, I've always loved films. I've always loved the people that make films. And so when you've made a film and send it out into the world, I take solace. I have a quantum of solace, you might say, that at least what I've done is the best I could do at the time. I look back at my movie Free Enterprise and I want to make it better. But for the most part, and look, Requiem for Krypton was going to be twice as long as it is. And I should probably reinstate it and put it out in a 6-hour form. But I'm very proud of all the work that everybody did on that documentary. And it really captured a year of my life watching a movie get made. And I had access to the highest levels wherever I wanted. Everybody was very nice to me on that set. I was in and out of producer Gil Adler's office when I wanted to be. Chris Lee, one of the other executive producers, and of course, Brian Singer, and the entire cast and crew really afforded me a great opportunity. And I learned more about making movies on the set of both Chronicles of Narnia in 2004 and then Superman Returns in 2005 than you could possibly imagine. And to hear that what I've learned and how I was able to convey to you or inspire you through the work that we did, me and my team and I, it's just amazing to hear and to see that it inspired you to, obviously, what I love about your letter, in addition to the thanks, is that you went to the Sitges Film Festival. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Sitges Film Festival, Sitges is a small coastal Mediterranean coastal town that's about 25 kilometers south of Barcelona in Spain. And every year in October, For the summer, it's sort of a gay destination spot in Europe. And then right when that season ends, the changeover happens. You know, all the people leave for the summer that were there, and they're replaced by a bunch of nerds and horror fans, and it's incredible. It's just because the film festival, I believe it's in its 50th year. Maybe 50 year was last year for 2001. Might be the 51st year of the festival. It is a festival devoted to science fiction, fantasy, and horror. And of course, it has great meaning to me because Free Enterprise had its world premiere there in October of 1998. So I wanted to go to the Sitges Film Festival my whole life. And of course, my friend Charlie de Lauzarica has been there a number of times. And of course, Charlie is also a great documentarian and a filmmaker in his own right. He had his film Crave, and then of course he made the definitive Blade Runner documentaries and Alien documentaries. And so it's really fantastic to hear that not only did you like my documentary, but that you were inspired and you went to the Sitges Film Festival and you won. And you went and you won the best short film at Sitges, which is amazing. I'm hoping that we get to send Skyfighter to Sitges this year, because any excuse, I've been back to Sitges a number of times, and any excuse to go there. It's my favorite film festival in the world. Tallulah's barking. She's probably very excited. So JCT, thank you for that heartfelt letter. It really means a lot. And, I learned a great deal from watching documentaries as well. I still watch behind the scenes documentaries. I just watched, I think it was Automat, this week, Hedwig and the Angry Inch. John Cameron Mitchell's film came out on Blu-ray from Criterion, and they put on the incredible documentary that was done for New Line Home Video, I think in 2002. It's a phenomenal documentary that chronicles the rise of Hedwig from its very beginnings, when it was a play, sort of a rebel off-Broadway play, to the film. And it's an essential documentary. It's very uplifting and really interesting. And that Criterion put that on their disc. By the way, for you physical media fans, the Barnes & Noble 50% off Criterion sale starts today. So if there's Criterion discs, and Criterion discs are still, even on Amazon, they're still expensive. But that 50% off sale, I mean, if you could get that Ingmar Bergman box set, that's like $200. I mean, it's like $400. You can get it for $200. But a lot of great stuff. I mean, as I pointed out, this War and Peace disc that came out this week. Criterion's got Police Story, Jackie Chan's Police Story 1 and 2 recently came out on Criterion. I highly recommend getting the new release of Terrence Malick's Tree of Life on Criterion. Hedwig is out this week. Get Hedwig. It's fantastic if you love the film. I do love the film. I think it's amazing. But go to the Barnes & Noble site. They're having 50% off. By the way, Arrow, the genre label that puts out amazing sci-fi and horror titles. They're actually releasing, check it out, Arrow is releasing Catherine Bigelow's first film, which she co-directed, that stars Willem Dafoe, called The Loveless, which I actually saw at the Seattle International Film Festival in the mid-'80s. I don't think The Loveless, it's been hard to find. Arrow is putting it out later this month. I believe it might be out. They're also putting out William Friedkin's notorious film Cruising, which I actually like a great deal, that stars Al Pacino. So that is coming out. Very exciting. So go to the Barnes & Noble sale and check that out. So that's pretty great to hear. Let's see. The James Eversole Jr. The James Eversole Jr. movie podcast writes in, and the James Eversole Jr. movie podcast says, Iron Man hot toy comes with the Nano Gauntlet. How rad. Well, as many of you know, Endgame, which has never left theaters, so you can't call it a re-release, but Endgame got a boost today in theaters. If you go see Endgame, there's a bunch of cool material at the end credits, including a deleted Hulk scene, Professor Hulk scene, and there's a Russo brothers greeting. And they did it for two reasons: to promote the upcoming home video release of Endgame, and also to hopefully bolster attendance to put Endgame over Avatar's worldwide box office, making Avengers Endgame the highest grossing film in motion picture history. And to also, the Endgame Hot Toys figure comes with kept one of the special features under wraps, the same way they did with their Captain America figure until Endgame was released, that he comes with a broken shield and Mjolnir. But they have kept the Tony Stark figure under wraps, that he does come with the nano gauntlet for the snap that he makes at the end of the movie. They're going to put that out. But you know what? I don't know if I'm going to buy that, to be honest. I got the Mark 50 armor. I just don't need another, iron. I think my Iron Man armor days are over. I mean, I am not one of those Iron Man Hot Toys completists. I probably have like 6 or 7 of the armors. I'll get the new War Machine, but that's about it. But it's pretty cool that they have that nano gauntlet. Pretty cool. So the James Eversole Jr. movie podcast, I'm with you. Are you going to pre-order it though? Cardinal Sin says the next format is no format. Don't you think, Rob? Well, Cardinal Sin, I think you are correct, sir. I do not think there's going to be another physical media format after 4K. The precipitous decline in sales over the last 5 years, the fact that physical media sales dropped 50% from 2014 to 2018, and then they've been dropping steadily about 15% a year. So I don't think physical media is long for the world. I mean, let's face it, aside from really obscure cult titles and a lot of our older films and silent classics, which aren't exactly going to support the marketplace, unfortunately, if you like physical media, stockpile everything you love now, because I think in 5 years. But then again, you never know. I mean, look at the secondary market. Maybe you'll always be able to get physical media, but will you be able to get players? That's the question. The James Eversole Jr. movie podcast is here again. He says, rewatched Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 1 and 2 back to back. The battles with Doc Ock and Green Goblin are just great nerdy gems. What's your favorite battle? I think the train rescue scene in Spider-Man 2, Raimi's Spider-Man 2, is one of the great superhero set pieces. I love it to death. I don't know if you'd call it a battle. I guess you would. It's a battle. I love that. I honestly love that that sequence. So probably that. I need to go back and watch the Raimi Spider-Man movies. I haven't seen them in a long time. I should just do a triple feature. I do have the beautiful poster that was pulled from release with the Twin Towers reflecting in Spider-Man's cowl. I have that one sheet. It's a gorgeous one sheet. After the Twin Towers fell, they pulled it from release, but I have a mint condition rolled one sheet of that poster, which I love. Stubble McShave says, you and Aaron Cummings have similar facial structure. Anything you want to tell us? For those who don't know, I was on the John Campea show with Aaron Cummings, who's an actress. You might recognize her. She's been in many things, but she was Spartacus's wife in Spartacus. And she has a podcast called Kappa Kappa Cancer, the sorority you never want to belong to. She's a cancer survivor. I had never met her before. We did the podcast this week, and she's just delightful. What a wonderful person and a great actress. And she's got a great career. But no, there's nothing to tell you. We are not related in any way, shape, or form. And I hear, she was blonde, but John Campea tells me she's actually a redhead. So that goes to show you, me and redheads, but I don't know anything about her. It was the first time I met her, and she's a pistol, that one. I really enjoyed doing the show with her. So that was great. I hope she was going to come back yesterday, but could not, which is kind of a bummer. But anyway, this next letter comes from James M. Hi, Rob. I enjoy watching honest trailers from Screen Junkies. I do too. I particularly love Dan Murrell's his honest trailer for Star Trek The Next Generation. I enjoy watching honest trailers from Screen Junkies and have just gotten caught up. One of their more recent trailers was for Captain Marvel, which I think is among their best trailers. Anyway, they poked fun in their trailer at how little emotion she shows in the movie, which is why I didn't like the movie that much and why I didn't think it deserved to make $1 billion at the box office. Which brings me to my question. Do you think if Captain Marvel and Ant-Man and the Wasp had swapped release dates, that either movie would have made $1 billion? After all, Captain Marvel, if my memory is right, didn't pass $1 billion until after Avengers Endgame was in theaters for a while. In my opinion, I don't think Captain Marvel would have become a $1 billion movie in the June-July spot because people knew and they could wait for a home video or streaming release to see it. Before Avengers Endgame, which is what happened to Ant-Man and the Wasp, James M. Well, James, I got to disagree with you, sir. First of all, thank you for writing the letter. I was somebody that was talking about the virtues of Captain Marvel before I'd even seen it. I have often said that I think the female audience, especially in the superhero realm, has been woefully underserved. And first of all, remember, Captain Marvel is basically a space Nazi. She's a Kree warrior that has been wrongfully hunting down and I guess murdering Skrulls, according to the MCU. So this idea that she's supposed to be emotional or governed by her emotions or something, I thought was, I've never understood that criticism. I quite liked Captain Marvel. I've defended the movie quite a bit. I thought her portrayal of being that Kree warrior was well done. I thought she was playing the character the way she was supposed to. And over the course of the film, she starts to come to know herself through the relationships that she has with people, especially when she gets to Earth. She meets her old friend and her old friend's daughter, who mean a great deal to her. And of course, Nick Fury and Agent Coulson. And through the relationships she has, she realizes the life she's been leading is a lie. She even discovers that the Skrulls that she's been hunting down and I guess murdering, she was on the wrong side of history on that one. And I really enjoyed her portrayal. I thought, look, Brie Larson's a great actress. I really liked Captain Marvel. I liked its sort of indie, stripped down vibe. I know a lot of people didn't. I did. It really worked for me. I felt they wanted to create a more of an indie vibe superhero film and make it more of a character study. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. But yeah, but I want to thank you for writing in. And that's kind of what I had to say. Now, this is the letter. I got confused yesterday, but this is the letter I was going to read that I thought was from, it's a long one. I thought it was from Aaron Brown. This is the letter I meant to read yesterday. But you know what? I will always cop to my mistakes, because remember what I told my ex-wife, honey, it's always my fault. So it's my fault that I read the wrong letter. So here's Aaron back. And this is a long one, so strap in. It's a long one, but a good one. Greetings, Rob, high flag officer of the Post-Geek Singularity. I once again applaud you for the unenviable task of reading through another arduously long letter of mine. I actually thought I had sent that, though earlier, only to find it sitting unsent several days later. So alas, it came trailing in terms of being on topic with where the conversation has gone. I found Willow's story about her trip with her science peers to be particularly engaging. Her account of dreading social interaction spoke to me directly. Now, I wouldn't say that I have social anxiety or anything like that, and I'm not at all about to diminish the issues for those that do face them on a daily basis. I simply just don't enjoy making conversation with new people or being in a social situation where I don't know other people most of the time. How I usually handle these sorts of things when I'm in that situation is, like Willow, to break the ice and the awkwardness with seeking to make a conversation over pop culture interests. I do that too. Over the past number of years, I've found Game of Thrones to be a great go-to in this respect. Most everyone has watched it, so it's an easier starter to work from. A couple of colleagues where I work are an interesting study on that series, as one is a big fan of the show, and we've caught up in lengthy discussions about all manner of topics surrounding the series. The other colleague refuses to watch it, so they are a source of amusement to bug with our keen interest in it. I actually thoroughly enjoy when I come across someone that has a differing opinion from me on a film, TV series, or what have you. Debating these things and all their minutiae is what takes up an absurd amount of time in my conversations with my friends. We will tag each other in articles that we know will either excite or often enjoyably catch the ire of each other and set off a great incensed chat about these things. So I always hope to encounter new takes, opinions, and perspectives on all things from those I haven't encountered before. Which is why, as I divulged at length in my previous letter, I'm bewildered at the hate that flows from differences of opinion on things we're all meant to enjoy. After all, these things are all forms of entertainment. As I say, I'm always hopeful of encountering great discussion on these things and new interactions, but most often I'm left wanting. Despite having a broad range of various interests, I find the people I encounter to be dull. This is likely due to my own expectation of conversation to be engaging. I got my dogs here. No matter what the subject. Hell, they can be talking about doing some DIY around the house or anything. And as long as they're conversing with passion and interest, I'll be engaged. Me too. I can converse over just about any topic with some form of understanding, but no, unfortunately, most of the mouth breathers I've come across leave me wanting. I'm conscious of the switch in myself also. Shasta has a hugely varied circle of friends and acquaintances. She's one of these people everybody likes. So we are often invited to things where there's a whole array of people that I've never encountered before. These often play out the same way. I make polite introductory conversation to everyone I'm introduced to. I try and establish some kind of interesting topic to form an ongoing conversation from, which either happens for a short while or leads to the inevitable awkward silence moments, in which case I seek out a beverage or some other distraction. I find it interesting that these sorts of social interactions have become more of a grind for myself as I've gotten older. I'm now in my mid-30s, and I can remember these things being a fair bit easier when I was younger. For most of my 20s, I spent a lot of time in bars and clubs playing with bands. Those interactions were natural, as the music interests of those in attendance were a natural stepping off point for a conversation. Times inevitably change, and so is that scene here, with many venues now gone, and a younger generation now occupying what's left. I'm still involved in it, but it's not like what it was 10 or more years ago, and I guess no one should expect it to be. So too, geek conventions and gatherings. I have numerous friends that are into cosplay and attend all the local cons, Supernova, Oz Comic Con, and others. I've been numerous times, but my interest in going to those has waned too because the crowd's there. It may sound ridiculous for someone who thoroughly enjoys performing on stage to say they dislike crowds, but there it is. I toughly detest humans when they are in great numbers. I think the expansion of interest in all things geek is great. As a kid that grew up in the 80s and 90s, a lot of what I was into was considered to be geeky or nerdy, and those terms weren't used in as favorable a manner as they are today. It's because we live in the post-Geek Singularity. Being teased for being a Star Trek or Star Wars fan was definitely not out of place when I was a kid in school. No, much like the negative aspects I spoke of in my previous letters of fandom and geek culture permeating into the masses, or the normies, as some I know call them, the abundant positives should also be observed. It's ridiculous to think now that your general Star Wars fan would have been the object of ridicule, except now by other Star Wars fans. Who are Star Wars fans today? The general public are the audience by and large, the normies. These movies made $1 or $2 billion worldwide. It's no longer a niche fandom that kids who grew up with it obsess over as insular groups. Well, they do, but it's grown far beyond that. And Star Wars is only one example. I acknowledge that I've likely come across, as in my previous letters, as being downcast on fandom or the state of geek culture in this post-social media age. I'm not. In fact, I think there's been more good to come out of it for all of us fans than there is negative. We live in an age where we have comic movies based on the likes of Guardians of the Galaxy, R-rated Deadpool movies, great reboots like It, and many more that you could mention. Sure, there's some questionable stuff out there in the geek sphere too. Suicide Squad, I'm definitely looking in your direction. But that should just bolster the conversation more, which online it does. That's the great thing about the online sphere. Conversation over these sorts of things around the virtual fire is continually stoked. Yes, at times, as I've grumbled, it devolves into a hot mess, or is hijacked by some woke individuals with their agenda politics. But as this, the Post-Geek Singularity proves, that hope does spring eternal. And really, there are a great number of us that are looking to seriously engage in enriching geek-related conversation and discovering the stories and perspectives of others. Perhaps it is because of the engagement that I and others find online in this and other outlets that leads to such disappointing interactions in the physical world. It's definitely a factor, I feel, as though the sheer volume of personalities online, those who, to me at least, are more interesting, come through noticeably, and it's likely partly due to the staggering numbers involved. I'd like to think that's the case, rather than the alternative being that I just find the majority of new people I've interacted with to be awfully dull. It does make me wonder how all these things will evolve for the younger generations too. The internet only became a viable outlet in my life when I was a young teenager, heading into high school. I'm right smack bang in the transitional Gen Y bracket now. I'd like to think we're the most highly adaptable of the age brackets around us, as we grew up in a transitional period of technology. I'm highly familiar with VHS, vinyl, 8-track, cassettes, laserdiscs, CDs, DVDs, mini discs, MP3, torrents, you name it, I've had it, played around with it, and copied it from one to another in all the available avenues. I've also found through my younger relatives that younger generations are less able to adapt when something breaks down. Through necessity, I've always been able to make do with compromised technology. If a function doesn't operate properly or on a player or a program, I've been able to find a way of making do or getting around the issue. It's something I've oddly prided myself on, and I'm somewhat pissed I can't translate that into my CV or resume with any credibility. But that is something that I'm not alone in with peers my age, I've found. These younger digital natives, however, they seem to break down when their tech does. This may seem like a long digression, but it brings me back to my point. If social interaction and our inherent interest in it is affected by our interaction and if social interaction and our inherent interest in it is affected by our interaction and gratification with technology, does that pose a major dilemma moving forward as a people? It's a really good question. Older generations already complained that the world has lost something in the art of physical communication. Who am I to disagree with that? Much of my own personal account would appear to be in line with their assessment, but I do still greatly value good physical interaction. I get that from friends and family. I love to entertain. I love to have great discussions over a meal, a heated, passionate debate, or all of the above. As Gang of Four penned on entertainment, I found that essence rare. It's what I live for. By the way, Gang of Four, a great band, does not get nearly enough mentions in the world. So once again, let me appreciate this collective for what it is and revel in the fact that this day and age, we can traverse great expanse between us and find like-minded people like you, Rob, and everyone else here to share our stories, opinions, accounts, and beliefs to enrich each other's experience here on the planet whilst we can. P.S. I really like the idea you floated of members joining the show with you or sharing content of their lives. It could be an idea for a section of the website to have members of the Post-Geek Singularity send in a bit of a snapshot story of their lives with photos and whatnot to be featured. It would certainly be great to put faces and backgrounds to the names and writings of the people here. Sincerely, Aaron Brown. Once again, Aaron, coming all the way from Australia, what a great letter that you've written. And, I think, look, we all have phones. We can all make videos of ourselves. If you guys want, we do have the Imagination Connoisseur gallery, but we have a great letters section. I mean, I'm really surprised putting up the letters on the website. If you go to the Burnettwork and look at the letters section, it's rapidly filling up. What a cool thing. I love having these letters that I read available for people to read later and comment on them. I think it's really great. But I'd love to hear from you guys. If you guys feel comfortable, one of my moderators who I've never met, Detective Jim, I met Jim because he was writing me very nice letters first. That's how we met. And, he lives in a place in the United States that I've never been before, but he sent a letter or a video clip of himself to the moderators. He's a very handsome man, that Detective Jim. Looks like he's got a great backyard that he lives in. And it was great to hear from him. And also, it was nice to put a face with the name and with somebody that now is interacting with all you guys out there right at this moment. Detective Jim Boyer's out there. Yes, if you don't know, he was a police detective. And before that, he I guess, I don't know if it was black and white in his neighborhood, but he was a cop, man. He probably walked a beat too. So be respectful, be mindful of Detective Jim, ladies and gentlemen. But yes, it was great to see him. So it would be kind of neat if you guys, if you guys want to make little greetings for the rest of the Post-Geek Singularity community, send them onto the website, or even send a link. You might have to send a link like a WeTransfer link. You can go, there's a place called WeTransfer.com where you can actually send video up to 2 gigabytes for free. And you can send us any video greetings you want and greetings for the rest of the Post-Geek Singularity, so we can put your dulcet tones and your beautiful face to your ideas. That would be kind of fun. I really like that, Aaron. That's a great idea. But why don't you do the same? Why don't you and Shasta get on it? It's your idea. Why don't you be the first? Be the Neil Armstrong of the Post-Geek Singularity and send your video greeting to the Burnettwork.net so we can see exactly who and what is out there. as Ming the Merciless said in Flash Gordon. By the way, just another shout out, Big Chief Studios in the UK. Now, to be honest, I only have one action figure that Big Chief Studios has made. I missed out because I was broke. I did not buy. They're unbelievable. At least they looked unbelievable. They're James Bond figures. They put out Connery as Bond and Goldfinger. They put out Auric Goldfinger, and they put out Odd Job. Did not get those. I did pre-order. They're doing the Spaniard figure. Russell Crowe's the Gladiator. I've had 3 different Gladiator figures, unofficial Gladiator figures, but Big Chief. They're in the UK, Big Chief Studios UK. If you order, they made 12-inch figures of Ming the Merciless, Max von Sydow as Ming, and Flash Gordon. The Ming the Merciless is amazing, but up until June 30th, they have free shipping worldwide if you pre-order. Now, I don't know about their Flash Gordon, but their Ming the Merciless is great. The face sculpt on the Flash isn't quite there yet, but maybe that was just a prototype. I'm a big fan of Big Chief Studios out of the UK. Oh, the one figure I own of theirs is Matt Smith. They did a whole line of Doctor Who figures. I have their Doctor Who Matt Smith figure that somebody gave me, actually. But anyway, yeah. So check that out. And that sale goes through June 30th. Cardinal Sin says, watching Doomcock and Nerdrotic. Doomcock said he tried to get a hold of you, and Gary too. Secret plans are afoot. Get in touch if you can. Well, look, as I said, by the way, I watched Doomcock and Gary Beekler over at Nerdrotic. They both did pieces. For those of you who don't know, Michael Chabon or Michael Chabon, I don't know how to, I always said Chabon, but I don't know how you pronounce his last name. Michael Chabon, who's an incredible writer, incredible novelist, was named the new showrunner for the Star Trek Picard series. Again, in mid-production. And Michael Chabon is a great writer, a phenomenal Pulitzer Prize winning writer. I don't know what he knows about television production. He wrote on one of the he did write a draft of one of the Spider-Man movies, but he's never been a producer of a TV show. But now he's the new showrunner. Doomcock and Nerdrotic and Gary Beekler over at Nerdrotic did pieces about it, and very interesting that he took over as showrunner. He did write one of the short treks, which I thought was okay. But again, I just don't understand the choices that CBS is making. You know, one of the big problems modern Star Trek Discovery, and I'm sure Picard have, is they're ungodly expensive. They're so expensive, and they need a seasoned veteran of television in order to bring down those costs, because they're making these things as if they have the budgets of feature films, which they do not, or they shouldn't. And it's problematic on every level. But that's good to know that Doomcock and Nerdrotic are looking for me. I will find them. I would love to, if there's secret plans afoot, I'm proud to join them and help any way I can help Doomcock in his plans to rule the world. I'm happy to be a part of them. The James Eversole Jr. podcast says Comic Relief is in Richmond, Indiana. Sorry, I forgot the location the other day in that shout out for Jacob Fudge. Well, why don't I do it again? So for everybody who might live near or around Richmond, Indiana, I don't know exactly where that is. I know where Indiana is. I know where Indiana is because that's where the UFOs appeared in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, right? I mean, they did. Anyway, I know it's a state in the United States. I know that. So anyway, I'll give out another shout. Jacob Fudge and his new, I read it as Jacob only because you spell Jacob with a K. And to me, it just sounds like more erudite when I say Jakob, but I'll just say Jacob Fudge. What a great name Jacob Fudge is. Anyway, is he related to one of my favorite character actors? It's Alan Fudge. So if you live in Richmond, Indiana, in or around, go to the new comic book store, Comic Relief, and talk to Jacob Fudge. I can't guarantee you any kind of a discount, but if you buy enough stuff at his comic book store and tell him you heard me give him a shout out and that's why you're there, maybe he'll give you 10% off. That'd be kind of cool. I don't know if he will. And by the way, I'm not saying he will either. I'm just saying it might be cool if he did. So you never know. This next letter comes from Sean M. And Sean M says, "Hi, Rob. Love the show. And I tend to watch it after work just about every day. Why do I watch? Well, I tend to agree with you on a wide variety of topics, which I guess is nice, but it's not the real reason. Gilbert is entertaining. Real reason I watch, though, is because I learn something every time. This is actually the only reason I find it compelling to do anything. So you definitely have my appreciation. I will probably subscribe as well when I get done writing this message. Well, thank you. Please like and subscribe to all of you who might be watching this. One of the things I recently found interesting that you had discussed, and I didn't know this before, so bear with me, is that the Axanar film was partially based on the FASA role-playing supplements for the Klingons and the Federation. That's cool because I had always liked those from whenever they were published. And I had bought them and read them over and over and over again because, as you know, back before there were internets, all there was available was stuff like that. I had especially thought the 4 Years' War timeline was well done. And I think it was also written by John M. Ford, who wrote 2 Star Trek novels. That is correct. The final John Ford Star Trek novels, The Final Reflection and How Much for Just the Planet, I believe. By the way, if you want to read 2 fantastic Star Trek novels and you like Klingons, first of all, John Ford's The Final Reflection, which they should have adapted as Star Trek canon, is one of the great Klingon stories you'll read. And his book, How Much for Just the Planet, is hilarious. Unfortunately, Mr. Ford passed away. But those books, if you're a Star Trek fan, are very much worth seeking out. They're beautifully written, and they're just great. I recall reading and rereading both because I thought they were excellent. The Final Reflection was about the Enterprise era before Enterprise and featured a lot of great details about the Klingons and the formation of the Federation from a Klingon perspective. I would need to reread it to give it justice, it is due, so I will probably do that. But one question for you I had was, do you think Ron Moore took the details from the Final Reflection and reworked them into the TNG timeline Klingons? I really think he did borrow heavily from this material, and that's actually a good thing. Also, on a personal note, I loathe Doomcock, as I have made plain many times in my comments. I won't interject into your show how much I hate this guy anymore, but I just can't bear his commentary on Star Trek. So much to dislike there, but this encapsulates it for me. As you know, he closes his broadcasts with, stay angry about Star Trek. This is so antithetical to what I think and feel about Star Trek that every time I hear him say anything, it just fucking pisses me off. The sad fact is that there are so many people that share his negatives. I would say actually repellent views that his style of commentary is the norm these days. I used to lump Nerdrotic in with him, but he's not as bad. Anyway, enough of that. I just thought I would explain my interest in your show, ask my questions about John Ford influencing Ron Moore, and say fuck Doomcock and his Rush Limbaugh followers living in their parents' basements. But also that I pledge to be polite with them on your show because, like you say, it should be a safe space. And also, I like a challenge. Being nice to asshats is hard for me to do, but I will do my best. Thanks, man. Recommend not reading this on the show as it would be derivative. Everyone probably already knows I hate Doomcock. Although if you address the John M. Ford influencing Ron Moore subject, I think it would be interesting and entertaining. Sean M. Well, Sean, I'll tell you why I read your letter on the show. First of all, I like this letter a lot. And second of all, here's the thing about Doomcock and Gary at Nerdrotic. Gary Beekler. Both of them love Star Trek. I think both of them love Star Trek in a way I love Star Trek. But I see Doomcock he's playing a character. And sure, his views are extreme, but I look at Doomcock as doing a little bit of theater. And I really appreciate the production he puts into his shows. And while I do think his views are extreme, that's the character he's playing. Now, I don't think he believes what he's saying, but he's definitely playing a character. I mean, I don't really believe that Doomcock is in the center of the world planning his takeover. And when I watch him, and I have to say, I enjoy watching him. I watch him as a character. And I don't let what he's saying, when he says stay angry, that's the character of Doomcock. And yes, I know that there's a bit of reality in there. But when I watch Doomcock, I look upon him as a character, and I really do appreciate what he's doing with the YouTube space. And there's a lot of cogent and salient points that he makes about Star Trek. Now, his followers, I am one of his followers, but again, I look at what he's doing as theater, and I do appreciate that he is a Trek fundamentalist, and he's a firebrand. But again, I do think he's a character, and I just, I guess I appreciate the time he puts into creating that persona. And he's a YouTuber like Gary. Gary, I think, is a full-time YouTuber. He's got 75,000. Gary Beekler over at Neurotic has 75,000 plus followers. He'll soon have 100,000 plus followers, and he covers a wide variety of topics. And I enjoy looking at him looking at the world through his perspective. But again, I watch a lot of different YouTubers that a lot of people don't necessarily like. Like I watch a lot of Ben Shapiro. Do I agree with Ben Shapiro? No, I don't. As a matter of fact, I find myself diametrically opposed to almost everything he says. But he's an important voice. There's a lot of people that do follow him, and I want to hear his perspective. I watch Dave Rubin and Joe Rogan. A lot of people don't like them. I really like both Dave Rubin and Joe Rogan. I like their shows because I think they do great deep dives with their subjects. They provide Andrew Yang, for instance, a guy that I like who's now running for president. I really appreciated the time that Dave Rubin gave him on his show. I really could hear. It was great hearing what a presidential candidate, a really knowledgeable, smart guy, has to say for 2 hours. So, I tend to filter all these things out through my own filter. And that's kind of the way I see it. I don't think that we should fear other people's ideas, even though we can sit there and say, look, good ideas, and I think we'll win out. And one of the great things about this, as we had from Aaron, and we hear from Sean, the YouTube space and the social media space, and the fact that we have this communications technology is really, really important. And how it's used is also very important. And we're going through an evolutionary phase right now. And it's interesting because when I first started, everyone's telling me about, everything's got to be short form. Long form doesn't really work. But I think that's completely changed because of people like Shapiro, Joe Rogan, and Dave Rubin, who have these long chat shows where you actually get to really know a guest. And I think that's great. I think it's great and the fact that, we make our own minds up. I'm watching a spider walk up my Boris the spider. He's walking up my light. But anyway, that's kind of how I feel about it. Now, when it comes to John Ford's book about the Klingons, I don't think anyone who writes Klingons in Star Trek can not read John Ford's book. It's essential reading. Is it canon? No. I do think absolutely Ron Moore did weave in many of the concepts. And look, I'm a huge fan of this kind of thing. I do not understand why anyone who's working on Star Trek does not go and read the 30 essential Star Trek novels. Christopher Bennett's work, Diane Duane's work, some of Peter David's work, David Mack's work, John Ford's The Final Reflection, essential. And why doesn't anybody who's working with a franchise, whether it's Star Wars or Alien or Predator or Star Trek, read all of the great materials? Go find the 30 best things that have been written or published already by other people and draw from those things. I completely agree with you. I really love The Final Reflection. It's an incredible Star Trek book. And if you want to delve into that, I highly recommend it. It's a really fascinating read. Really good stuff. Word Balloon, John Suntress is here. From the Word Balloon podcast. As many people know, if you want to listen to one of the great pop culture podcasts, John's podcast, the Word Balloon podcast, is one of the best on the web. I highly recommend checking him out. John says, compare Disco to the Orville per episode costs. Well, I don't know how much the Orville costs, but I'll tell you, I would be not surprised if the Orville is 2/3 of the budget of Discovery. I've heard Discovery is well beyond $10 million an episode. Now, unless Seth MacFarlane is getting huge upfront money, but I probably would imagine he's not, because he wanted to make the Orville, so he was probably willing to keep the costs down. But I'm sure the Orville doesn't cost nearly what an episode of Discovery. I wouldn't be surprised if it's half or 2/3. But I have no knowledge of how much they spent on an episode of the Orville. I have no idea. Just Plain Steve says, favorite Star Trek theme. I love Voyager's theme. Well, of course, Voyager's theme's great because it was written by Jerry Goldsmith. I think the original series is my favorite, but I really love what became the Next Generation theme. But I love the Star Trek The Motion Picture theme that Jerry Goldsmith also wrote. His version of it that was used at the beginning of Star Trek the Motion Picture, I loved. Star Trek the Motion Picture is one of my favorite motion picture soundtracks of all time. Can't get enough. Willow Yang is here. Willow Yang, will you send me a video saying hello so we can all see your lovely face? Anyway, you don't have to. I know you probably just went in anaphylactic shock by me saying that. But anyway, Willow says, will you be wearing a hashtag Justice for Han shirt when you go see Hobbs and Shaw? The latest trailer looks pretty badass. For those of you who don't know, I'm a huge lover of the Fast and the Furious franchise. I especially love the character of Han Seoul, like the city Seoul-o, because he's Korean. And one of the great things about the Fast and the Furious franchise is Han Solo, spoiler alert, dies at the end of Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, the third movie in the franchise. But Justin Lin, who directed Tokyo Drift, created the character of Han in his movie. Is it A Better Tomorrow? It's not. Is it the John Woo movie? Better Luck Tomorrow. The character of Han was created in Better Luck Tomorrow, and he brought that character over and put him in Tokyo Drift. And then because he directed Fast and Furious, Fast 5, and Fast and Furious, the sixth version, he made those movies prequels so he could bring back Sun Kang to play Han Solo in 4, 5, and 6, which is like the greatest thing ever. And that's why I love Han Solo. And of course, he's never received justice. And Deckard Shaw, who killed Han, who was revealed to kill Han in Fast and Furious 7, now is like buddy-buddy with the rest of the franchise. And I've been very angry that they should have killed Deckard Shaw for killing Han Solo. So I always say hashtag Justice for Han. I know it's convoluted. You probably don't understand what I just said, but it's true. And yes, I'm going to get a Justice for Han shirt and go see Hobbs and Shaw, which is the first Fast and Furious spinoff. It is the 9th Fast and the Furious movie. It followed F. Gary Gray's Fate of the Furious. It's the 9th movie, Hobbs and Shaw, that stars Deckard Shaw and Hobbs, who was introduced in Fast 5, which is just strange to me that now Hobbs is like a good guy and they don't have justice for Han. So there's a lot going on. There's no verisimilitude in Hobbs and Shaw, but this new trailer, as Willow so eloquently put it, looks pretty badass. It certainly does. Benjamin 23 says, non-geek centric question. How have you done much international travel on a shoestring budget, backpacker style? If so, where did you go? Well, actually, no, to be honest. I haven't done much shoestring travel, but I've looked into it. I mean, I've been lucky in that most of the travel that I've done, I keep looking at this. I keep looking at this spider, and I really want to kill it, but I don't think I can reach it without sending my light over. Maybe I can. I don't know if I got it or not. Maybe I didn't. Anyway, no, I haven't done much backpacking, shoestring style, but I have traveled very economically. It's not, look, everybody should travel. Everybody should get a passport. It's shameful that 65% of Americans don't have passports and we haven't traveled. You learn more about yourself and more about the world around us through traveling. But traveling, you can find deals. You can you can stay at hostels. There's many ways to travel around Europe. Get a Eurail pass. There's many ways to see the world on a shoestring, and I think everybody should do that. But I personally, to tell you the truth, I feel shamefully I didn't leave the United States, the continental United States. I've been to Hawaii. I'd been down in Mexico. I've been to Canada, but I'd never been across either pond. And the first time I went to Europe was when I took my film Free Enterprise to Sitges for its world premiere, and I find that shameful. And if I had done it again, let me just say, if you're in college, if you're watching this and you're in college, take a year off or get credit. Go abroad for a year. Go abroad for a year. Trust me. Just do it. You are going to have the best time in the world. You got to do it. Go. Cardinal Sin says, anyone that thinks Doomcock is inciting violence should attend a live stream. They're long, I know, but he sings, he does voices. His Harvey Cthulhu character is adorable, and his jokes are very funny. It's a total put on. Well, Cardinal Sin, I completely agree with you. By the way, thanks for that very generous support of the channel. It's an act, and I have heard his live streams. The guy is hilarious. He's incredibly talented, And wow, this spider, he really is Boris the Spider. He keeps trying to climb up. I feel like I should just let him be. Maybe I should just let him weave his web. But yes, Doomcock is a very funny guy, and he's playing a character, and you got to look at him as a performer. And I agree with you. I don't believe he's inciting violence. I think he's funny, and yes, I do think that on the surface you could say he's purveying toxic fandom, but you've also got to take him with a grain of salt because it's performance. He is playing a character. So I do agree with you. And by the way, his live streams, as Cardinal Sin is pointing out, his live streams are pretty damn funny. You know, and I like when Gary and Doomcock talk together. I do. You know, and if nothing else, you know, you can tell that I love passionate nerds, even if they're on let's call them passionate imagination connoisseurs, even if they're on the opposite side of the fence. I don't like it. What I really don't like is when people go after other fellow fans. That's when I sort of draw the line. I have no tolerance for that. There's no reason for that. As everyone knows, my baseline is that we're all fans. We all love this stuff. So we should operate from that perspective, is that we all come from a love of the genre, a love of this material. And look, we can passionately debate these things. I don't see why it needs to get ugly. I don't. But, you know, I mean, as Doomcock points out, Star Trek has gotten ugly. Literally. So, you know, Doomcock is he's trapped in a world that made him, not that he never made. And I appreciate that, Cardinal Sin. I do what you're saying. Okay, now this is a letter that really I thought was pretty funny. This comes to us from Skybeard. Greetings, Rob. Last night I had a dream. I was going to watch Godzilla, King of the Monsters again. I was running a bit later than usual, and I walked into the theater with my large popcorn just as the movie started. Just so happens, I saw you walking in front of me and thought, huh, is that Rob? By the way, I would have been in my seat already because I never missed the trailers. Just then, my popcorn exploded. I was shocked and embarrassed now that everyone was looking at me. I didn't know what to do or say to explain it. Half of my popcorn had vaporized into a cloud that was rising into the air, while the other half lay in scant piles all around. Why had my popcorn been dusted by Thanos' snap? What do the salted and buttered corn kernels that burst with happiness have to do with balance in the universe? I look to you, being the closest person to me, to ask, hey, do you think I can get my popcorn replaced? You insisted that I could not, and now I was distraught. The cloud of dusted popcorn caused the projection operator to pause the movie, and employees entered to investigate. I asked one if I could get my popcorn replaced, and she said, only if I get a medical exam first, of which I would have to pay a $100 fee. Before I could question the logic in that, the manager came up to me and said, you seem like a nice person. I'll tell you what, you can have all the popcorn you want. I share all of this to ask, have you ever had a dream involving fictional media in some way? For example, I've had many dreams of being in the Star Wars and comic book universes, zombies, etc. Heck, I once even dreamed I was a humpback whale. Oh, whale. Bonus question, if I may. I never got to hear your thoughts on Aladdin or Dark Phoenix. What did you think? All the best, Sky. Well, Sky, let me tell you. First of all, I haven't seen Aladdin or Dark Phoenix. I know. I'm going to try and alleviate this over the coming weeks. I was going to go see Dark Phoenix after this chat, but it's not playing at my local ArcLight. I don't even know where it's playing. I'll probably have to go to the Americana or something. But Aladdin's playing, so I might go see that. But I haven't seen them yet. But first of all, you know, I used to always have, I would call them pop, like you said, pop culture dreams. I used to have a lot of, when I was a kid, after I saw Dawn of the Dead, I used to have a lot of zombie dreams. And I think a lot of those were fueled by, there's a song on the Styx album, The Grand Illusion. I can't believe I'm going to admit this, but I love The Grand Illusion. I love Styx. But on the second side of the vinyl, I guess if you have the CD, which I do, it's not on the second side, but it's just on the CD. There's a song called Castle Walls that I always used to equate with Dawn of the Dead because I, you know, the shopping mall in Dawn of the Dead was sort of the castle, and for whatever reason, the whole song, the way it sounded, it just made me think of Dawn of the Dead. And I used to have these long Dawn of the Dead dreams. I had them for years, and what it was like. This is way before Walking Dead. I mean, after I'd seen Dawn of the Dead, it became one of my favorite movies, and well into the 80s, well into my teen years, I had zombie dreams and what it was like to live post zombie. And it was really funny because there was not the kind of zombie fiction that there is now, and certainly not Walking Dead. There was a great anthology that was published by the once reigning splatterpunk duo of John Skipp and Craig Spector. They did a Book of the Dead compilation of zombie stories, and it was all set in Romero's universe, and it was great. And there wasn't, now zombies are passe. There's so many goddamn zombie stories in the world. I mean, even though I still read them, there's every different kind of zombie. By the way, if you want to see an interesting zombie movie, The Girl with All the Gifts is an interesting take on the zombie genre. I really like that movie a lot. And I hear Danny Boyle is going to make another 28 Days Later movie. I love 28 Days Later. I love 28 Weeks Later, actually. I think they're good. So, yes, I do have pop culture dreams. I've dreamt I'm on the Enterprise. I've dreamt a lot of things. But yes, I have pop culture dreams a lot. Still, to this day. A lot of Star Trek dreams. A lot of that. So, yeah. So to answer your question, indeed. I think pop culture dreams are good. I like having them. I don't have enough, I never even had, as a kid, I never had lots of pop culture sex dreams, which was weird. Like, I never had dreams about Grace Kelly and Rear Window, or I just never did that. I always had weird, other different kinds of dreams. Cardinal Sin says, did you follow the saga of Doomcock's followers raising $1,000 in 45 minutes for Shatner's charity before he even knew what was going on to get him unblocked? I did. For those of you who don't know, for whatever reason, William Shatner has blocked Doomcock. I'll tell you something else. William Shatner's blocked me on Twitter. I have no idea why. I think it had something to do with Axanar. I don't know if his social media people even realize. I had a great exchange with Bill about Logan's Run. It was very funny. But, he has people running his social media, so it might not have been, they might not know. But, I mean, my relationship with him, as far as I know, is great. But so Doomcock was blocked by William Shatner. And I think it was last week they had Doomcock's followers said, I don't know how it all went down, but if they could raise a certain amount of money for William Shatner's charity, William Shatner would unblock Doomcock. And they did. They raised over $1,000 for his horse charity. And Doomcock made a very heartfelt video. I mean, he was like weepy-eyed. It was great. It was a great use of the internet. And it shows that how we can all come together as fans, and I really enjoyed what happened, and it was great. It was fantastic, and you should check it out because the videos are fun. They are fun. This next letter comes from Luke Beckett, and Luke, it's been edited a bit for clarity. Hey, Rob, enjoying your show as always. It is great to get some movie insight from someone who is not only passionate about movies, but who actually works in them. That gives us insight which we really cannot get from anybody else. I enjoy that. You were saying recently how you did not enjoy Return of the Jedi. You also said that you did not like Star Trek 3. This made me start wondering about the third movie of any franchise. Which one of them is actually worth watching? Why is it that the third movie is often the ones that jumps the shark? By the way, I hate that reference to Happy Days. The episode where the Fonz jumped a shark is nowhere near the quality of the episodes, and it was declining. It was on for another 7 years, and it was in the top 5 for most of that time, but I digress. Besides the aforementioned Return of the Jedi and Star Trek 3, we have Superman 3, Rambo 3, Halloween 3, The Godfather Part 3, Poltergeist 3, Home Alone 3, The Karate Kid Part 3, Beverly Hills Cop 3, and the list could go on. Now, of these movies, some are better than others, but many of them killed their franchises, or at least put them on standby for a while. The first Rambo, or First Blood, was an unexpected hit, so they made a second one. That one was an even bigger hit, so they made a third one. We did not see Rambo for another 20 years. I guess having Rambo play Bakashi in Afghanistan is not what people wanted. Then we have Superman 3. The producers fired director Richard Donner after the first Superman, and uncredited screenwriter Tom Mankiewicz left with him. So the writing duties were left to David and Leslie Newman, and Richard Lester, who finished Superman 2 instead of Donner, directed. The result is a comedy starring Richard Pryor. What? I like the direction Halloween 3 Season of the Witch took by deciding to turn the series into an anthology instead of continuing the Michael Myers storyline, since that story had ended, or so we thought, in the previous movie. But the general public wanted more Michael Myers, so the anthology idea fell flat. And the movie itself was a mess. Poltergeist, by the way, I love Halloween 3. I don't think it's a mess. I actually really like it. Poltergeist 3 and Home Alone 3 both suffer from some or all of the original cast not wanting to come back, and the producers just needing to continue the series anyway. By the way, don't forget Smokey and the Bandit 3. Smokey is the bandit. At least in Poltergeist 3, Heather O'Rourke did come back to give the series some continuity. In Home Alone 3, it's a whole different kid with no connection to the original one, and a story about a North Korean terrorist organization wanting a top secret chip. What's wrong, Gilbert? Oh, one of Elizabeth's customers is here, one of her clients. That's why Gilbert is barking, because Gilbert doesn't know. Beverly Hills Cop 3 tried to turn Eddie Murphy's... Wait, I didn't finish. Heather O'Rourke. A North Korean... Let me start again. At least in Poltergeist 3, Heather O'Rourke did come back to give the series some continuity. In Home Alone 3, it's a whole different kid with no connection to the original one, and a story about a North Korean terrorist organization wanting a top secret chip hidden in a kid's toy car is a whole lot more contrived than a kid mistakenly left home alone over Christmas. Beverly Hills Cop 3 tried to turn Eddie Murphy's character into a superhero by having him save kids off a broken Ferris wheel instead of just being the smart, jive-talking cop from Detroit he was in the first two movies. The Karate Kid Part 3 wants to cause some tension by putting the two main characters at odds, but they do this by introducing an over-the-top villain who not only is a black belt in karate, but who also has a business illegally dumping toxic waste. I forgot about that. As for The Godfather Part 3, I think it gets a worse rap than it deserves. Me too. I'm a huge Godfather 3 apologist. If you're going to make a Part 3, it should be about the later days of Michael Corleone and what happens to him and his family after a lifetime of crime. But fans wanted the Michael they had in Part 2, not the regretful, ailing mobster who confesses his sins to the next pope. Oh, you mean like Luke in Last Jedi? Which is probably why I like Last Jedi. My question is, can it be that by the time they get to number 3 in the series, the producers and writers really don't know what to do? I remember reading an interview with George Lucas where he admitted that after the first two Star Wars films, his original storyline was wearing thin, and he had to come up with extra material to fill the third movie. This explains Jabba's palace and the Ewoks, but this seems to be a common problem. Producers not knowing what to do and forging ahead anyway instead of calling it quits. Now there are some exceptions. Goldfinger was a hit and cemented James Bond as a series, although personally I think From Russia with Love was a better movie. Agree entirely. But I love Goldfinger. Lethal Weapon 3 was just as good as the first two. Not going to go with you there. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Back to the Future 3, both very solid. Agreed. Rocky 3, even though this is the one that stopped being a hard drama in favor of a popcorn movie, still very enjoyable. Absolutely. But again, those seem to be exceptions. You can go back to the well so many times, only so many times, but is 2 the magic number? Is 3 just too many? What do you think, Rob? Why is 3 such a bad number when it comes to movies? Luke Beckett. Luke, what a great question. Well, first of all, I think you're right. I think here's the thing. Most of the time when they made, if you think about the movies that were successful, and a movie you didn't mention, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, when they made Mad Max, when George Miller made Mad Max, he wasn't thinking franchise. He was just thinking, I want to make the best movie I can. He wasn't even a filmmaker, And it was literally his first feature. He went out and was trying to make the best movie he could. Don Coscarelli, when he made Phantasm. It took years to make the first Phantasm. He wasn't thinking about a franchise. First Blood was based on a novel. I think it was David Seltzer? Or no, it wasn't Dave. I forget who wrote the novel First Blood. But it was based on a novel. And, of course, The Godfather was originally based on a novel. And a lot of the time, Home Alone, they never expected Home Alone to be as successful as it was. Everybody hopes they're going to make a blockbuster hit. But when it becomes so successful, then, of course, the studios want to duplicate that success. So it's always money driven. Now, with the Bond films, they had the books, obviously. And I think you're absolutely correct in your assessment. I think From Russia with Love is probably the purest Bond adaptation of what the original intent of those books were. Fleming's intent is perfectly preserved in From Russia with Love. And there could be an argument made that as far as an adaptation of the Bond canon of novels, From Russia with Love is indeed the best of those films, even though I'm a huge Bond freak. Return of the Jedi, like Lucas said, look, they didn't know Star Wars was going to be a hit. For all the stuff that George Lucas, the Journal of the Wills and everything he talked about and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, whatever. Sure. He wrote down all these ideas. You know, you can go back and get the Dark Horse comic, The Star Wars. I have that beautiful slipcase version, and it's amazing Star Wars worked as well as it did. They were lucky to turn it into what it did. By the way, if you guys have not watched, it's going to be up for another 36 hours. There was a tremendous live stream last night from the Academy of Television, or the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, where they had a lot of people that were involved in the making of Star Wars, including Marcia Lucas and Richard Edlund and Harrison Ellenshaw. They did John Dykstra. They did an incredible live stream that's only going to be up for another 36 hours. So check it out. You can find it. I guess go to YouTube, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, their Star Wars live stream. Incredible hearing from all these people. Watch it. It's amazing. When do you get to hear from Marcia Lucas? Yeah, and so I think people run out of ideas. They don't know, but they're chasing that almighty dollar. And it's hard. It's hard when you've made a third film. What do you do? Because usually, especially if something's original, like Star Wars or like The Karate Kid, how do you make more, or Smokey and the Bandit? How do you repeat that success? Beverly Hills Cop. I mean, Beverly Hills Cop, Martin Brest's Beverly Hills Cop is one of my favorite movies of the 80s. And it's a pretty perfect movie for what it is. It's a great action film. It's a great comedy. It's a great action comedy. And Martin Brest is an incredibly talented director. Eddie Murphy was at the peak of his powers then. When it's over, it becomes a huge hit. So they're like, we got to make another one. So Beverly Hills Cop 2 is sort of a rehash, even though I kind of like Beverly Hills Cop 2. Tony Scott made it back in his Top Gun era. You know, he was making Top Gun for Simpson Bruckheimer, and he made Beverly Hills Cop 2. But again, it's a money decision, and they're going to drive these things into the ground as long as they make money. I mean, again, I liked Rocky 2, and I liked Rocky 3. I thought Rocky 3, they went where they had to go. They made it much more fun, a lot less dramatic, and it was a hoot. Rocky 3 was a hoot. It was a lot of fun. I really like Rocky 3. Unexpectedly loved Rocky 3. I think it was summer of '82 that Rocky 3 came out. Unexpected hit. But that's what they're always driven by money. I mean, look, I find it interesting that Francis Coppola might revisit Godfather 3 and do yet another cut of it. There's been 2 cuts already, but he wanted to call it like Godfather Requiem or something like that, or Michael Corleone Requiem. He didn't even want to call it Godfather 3, but he had to, obviously, because he was contractually bound to do so. But I think it's always about money. It's always about cash, cash, cash. And, you know, I don't begrudge anybody for making cash. I don't. That's what the studios, as we say, it ain't show friends, it's show business. So I certainly don't begrudge anyone for making the fat cash. And it's tough. I mean, look, I wish storytelling integrity, once you're making a story, if you're doing it for, like when George Lucas wanted to make Star Wars, he had a vision. Of course, he wanted to make money, but basically, first and foremost in his mind was recreating the movie serial, going back to the days of yore and doing something like that. That's what he wanted to do. That was his motivation. But now with Star Wars being the cash cow of a multinational corporation, it's all about money first. How do we figure out how we make money from this franchise? So I think that's what it's always about, money. Sometimes you get good movies, sometimes you don't. I mean, I really like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. I think it's aged quite well because it's so different from the first 2. Even though, you know, everyone was disappointed by it when it came out in '85 because it wasn't Road Warrior Redux. But I liked it. I thought it was interesting. T. Garnett 25 says, Mr. Burnett, love your work. Does the La La Land Records release of the complete Star Trek soundtrack bring a lot of interesting unreleased music to the table, or is it mostly a remastering? Okay. First of all, I cannot recommend the music that for those who are wondering, La La Land Records, there's an incredible story of how this came to pass, was able to acquire, through the help of Lucas Kendall, who I made Skyfighter with, all of the master tapes of the original music written for Star Trek. Most of it was never released, the original series, and they remastered all of it, including music that was never used. Most of the music had really never been heard before. And if you're a Star Trek fan and you are a La La Land Records fan, it is one of the greatest, if not the greatest CD release of my entire life. It's certainly up there. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Also, if I may give a shout out to La La Land Records, this 50th anniversary release, this collection has also all the music from the animated series, which I have been using just for fun. I know I resigned from the Axanar project in November of 2017, but since I was called out by Alec Peters on numerous occasions, I mean, he had the footage for this Heroes piece since we shot it in November of 2015. I've decided to finish this Heroes piece, this piece that we shot in James Colley's studio in Ticonderoga. And I actually used all of the animated series music to score this piece, which I'm going to be releasing in a few days because it's fun. So thank you, La La Land Records. So yes, so get that disc, get that box set. It's amazing. Just Plain Steve says, just curious, what's the story behind Axanar? I've never heard the background on it. I hope that's not a loaded question. You reference it often. Well, Just Plain Steve, it is absolutely not a loaded question. I did 2 very long videos about my involvement in Axanar, Robservations videos, very early on when I started. One is called Axanar and Me. The other is called I'm an Axanar Asshole Too. And this was even before I was reading letters, and I would refer you back to that. But in a nutshell, I was involved with the fan film project, first Axanar, that began with Prelude to Axanar. Then I went on and I released the Vulcan scene. I became the director of the project of the feature film. And I edited Prelude to Axanar, which we debuted at Comic-Con in July of 2014. And then I was involved with the project. We got sued famously. You can read all about it on the internet. Sued by CBS, which is a big lawsuit. And the man who started that project, Alec Peters, hasn't really done anything with it in the last 2 years. And he blames me, and he's been taking me to court and saying a bunch of stuff that I did this or I did that. It's interesting. He seems to forget, like, I've done everything that came out from the Axanar project and stuck by him during a lawsuit. It's amazing. He's coming after me. And by the way, he thinks, as a post-production supervisor and as an editor, one of the things I always do is back up all my work. And Alec, at my behest, bought me 2 drives that I copied all the Axanar material to, put the drives back in boxes, and they were in his office for over 6 months. They were on his desk, and then they were next to his office. He says, I never did that. I have video footage of those drives sitting next to your desk, Alec. I don't know why you would say that. I don't know what happened to them. Somehow, when he moved to Atlanta, he lost those drives, and he's been trying to sue me ever since, saying I don't do the work. Well, I don't know. Everything that came out from Axanar you can see is my work. So anyway, it's all very interesting reading. Listen to my piece, Axanar and Me, and I'm an Axanar Asshole Too. You can go check it all out, and go listen to Alec Peters disparage me every chance he can get. But what are you going to do? You haven't made it in Hollywood, so you've made enemies, right? Anyway, Sighing Cassandra says, I was wondering why that happens with series 2. There's usually a shift by the 3rd season. Well, you know what? I think Sighing Cassandra, like, I'll give you an example it's always the same thing. Like The Sopranos. If you watch the first season of The Sopranos, the show was really about what was going on between Tony Soprano, Uncle June, and his mother. And that was part of the show. And then Tony being in therapy. The show was a monster hit. They didn't know, it was really designed not to be an ongoing series. It was designed as really a mini series. They always hope it's going to be great. Then Nancy Bershon, who played Livia, died midway through the 2nd season. But, it went on, and Sopranos went on for how many years? But to me, it's really a first season show. It never, while I liked The Sopranos a lot and watched the whole thing, it was never as good as it was that first season, because the dynamic and the story they were telling, they were trying to, it kind of downshifted into something else. And I think that's just what happens. I mean, something gets successful and they don't expect it to be successful, and it becomes successful and it becomes a money thing. And I think that, that's what happens. So it's always a money thing, but they don't usually see with TV. They don't know if something's going to be successful. So they don't plan out 5 years, their arcs. They don't plan them, because how can they? It's unfortunate. How can they? It's kind of a bummer. JB Bonifacio asks, can we expect Roger Wardell tweets from you soon? Okay, from what I understand, Roger Wardell is a guy that has been tweeting insider information about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As many people know, I on John Campea, I talk about how I'm very good friends with the head of Disney, Bob Iger, and that he and we play squash on Sundays and go to lunch. I'm going to tell you guys a secret. I'm going to freely admit when I say that I'm friends with Bob Iger on the John Campea show, I'm lying. I'm making it up. I've never met Bob Iger. He's a hero of mine. I really appreciate what he's done, but I've never met the man. I just admire his business acumen. I think he's the shot caller, the baller of all time. I don't really know him, and I really don't know anything as far as the MCU is concerned. I have no inside knowledge about those things, so I can't be Roger Wardell. I mean, now I just called up a tweet that he made on May 7th. Doctor Strange 2, 1980s Boogaloo. Tilda Swinton is in talks to return as the Ancient One. Jericho, Drum, and Claire will make their MCU debuts. Claire will likely be portrayed by an Asian actress. Most importantly, the gloves will be back. Here's the thing. If I was an insider, if I was really working on a project, I wouldn't be tweeting about it. If I had inside information, I don't think it's right. I'm not a spoiler fan. I don't like that. I don't dig that. That's no fun. I don't like spoilers either. I would rather go back to the simpler time when we didn't know what movies were coming out. How was movie going different back in the day? You didn't know it was coming out. You read something in Starlog, you'd see a trailer, you knew nothing more about it until you went to the theater, and it was always very surprising. And that was a great way to live, man. That was a great way to live. So I probably won't be like old Roger. And to me, that's just a cry out for attention. Like, look at me, look at who I know. I'm so cool. Which is, I think it's kind of dumb. Anyway, Stub McShave says, I saw the Dr. No commentary. In No's headquarters, there's a Goya painting that had been stolen a few years earlier. Do you think we miss Easter eggs in old films? Absolutely, we miss Easter eggs in old films. I would assume the Dr. No commentary that you saw was the Dr. No commentary that was originally out on the Criterion Laserdisc. I don't know if it was From Russia with Love and Goldfinger or all three, but there was 2 Criterion commentaries on the Bond films that were actually pulled from release because they said some, I guess, not kind things about the filmmakers from the Bond franchise. So Criterion pulled them from future releases, but they're very sought after. I'm sure somebody's digitized them and put them up on the net, which is probably why you heard it. So yeah. Well, everyone, I think this brings me to the end of this lovely chat. As always, I want to thank all of you who so generously support this channel. I want to thank everybody for writing letters in. Please go to the Burnettwork.net website. You can support us there. I'm deplatforming myself off Patreon. So support the website there. And remember, for anybody who becomes a $9 or more supporter, you can start, I'm going to start taking your suggestions for the Viewer's Choice show every Friday that I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm just going to do a video package and it's going to be in addition to, by the way, in addition to regular observations, I'm going to start doing weekly daily shows, kind of like the Mickey Mouse Club. Wednesday might be surprise day. So I'm going to be doing that. And if you want to support the channel, please go to the website, theburnettwork.net. It's becoming very interactive. I love it. Please submit your 3-word movie reviews there. Also, your letters are going up there. The Imagination Connoisseur gallery is there. So we want to make the Burnettwork website much more interactive and sort of cater to the needs of our fans and all of you members of the Post-Geek Singularity community, which is awesome. Don't forget to go to clubluckytiger.com. You have today is the last day to enter their summer sweepstakes. And remember, at getluckytiger.com, you can get 20% off your order if you punch in PGS for Post-Geek Singularity. And you can look on Robservations because my interview with Alan Murphy, the president of Lucky Tiger, has gone up. It's only like 22 minutes. Check that out. It's a lot of fun. And I want to thank you all for being here. Another week down. I'll, of course, be back tomorrow. It's Saturday, but I'll be here. And I'm going to be back on the John Campea show on Monday. I'm also seeing Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse. I'm going to see Spider-Man Far From Home. On Tuesday, I might do a spoiler talk sometime during the week. I know John's talking about doing a spoiler talk as well. I don't know what we're doing with that, but I'll be there. I'll be here. I'll be wherever. So I want to remind all of you that every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. All you have to do is listen. And I want to just thank everybody for participating and being here as part of the chat. So I will tell you, as always, I hope you have a better day. Thanks to all my moderators, to Greg, to Detective Jim, to Terry in the UK, and to the Honorable Mike Bodden. Have a better day, everyone.